we're following the breaking news. Hillary Clinton has officially picked her vice presidential choice. Virginia Senator Tim Kaine will be her VP pick. He's expected to join her on the campaign trail tomorrow in Miami at an event. And she made the call today a little after 7:30 to tell him that he is officially her pick. Joining me now, Steve Chaggaris, CBS News senior political editor. Steve, what do you make of this pick?
Well, it's very, very interesting. I think, first of all, we've heard for months the criteria that they were going to use to pick a running mate. And, I think first and foremost, they said she wanted somebody who could step in if she couldn't continue as president. And I think you look at Kaine, he's a former governor, he's a current senator, he clearly has enough experience, not only executive experience, but legislative experience to do this. She said that she wanted somebody who she could see as a partner. And clearly, they have a long relationship. She's known him since for at least 10 years. And we saw them on the stump last week, and it was some comfort level. At least they must have felt there was some comfort level after that event. And then thirdly, she wanted somebody who she feels can go out there and be feisty and take it to Donald Trump. And so, I look at some of Kaine's experience here. He's been on the Foreign Relations Committee. He's been on the Armed Services Committee. And to me, this is sort of it's obvious to me that they're doubling down on foreign policy. I think they're going to go after Donald Trump. They're going to say what you want, criticize Hillary Clinton all you want on foreign policy, on terrorism. But let me tell you, this guy has no experience. The people who have experience doing this, Hillary Clinton is former Secretary of State. Tim Kaine has done it throughout his career in the Senate. We can handle these issues, tough times overseas, tough times in terms of national security, and I think that's going to be a big push for them. I think that's one of the main reasons why she picked Kaine. All these other reasons about him speaking Spanish, I'm not sure I'm totally sold on that. I think she's not going to have too much trouble with the Hispanic vote this fall. I think this is one of those years where Donald Trump's having enough struggles with Hispanics. She doesn't need somebody necessarily who's a Spanish speaker or Hispanic candidate to help bolster her there. But I do think the Virginia angle on this is interesting as well, mainly because I think Anthony Salvanto mentioned it earlier. There's the Senate at stake, and Democrats are trying to take over the Senate. Virginia's a state that has a Democratic governor, so if Kaine wins, Kaine and Clinton win this fall, then the Democratic governor would replace Kaine's seat with a Democrat, not risking control of the Senate.
Anthony Salvanto, you are joining me here as well, elections director for CBS News. I'm also caught by the fact on the statement, within the second sentence of the statement, she says, Tim is a lifelong fighter for progressive causes. Why is that so important, the word progressive?
Yeah, and it is because she has got to build bridges to the Bernie Sanders voters. And I think, just to go back and forth with Steve a little bit, that's going to be more important than foreign policy. Yes, that probably is how they're going to go after Donald Trump, but you have to start by rebuilding your base. That's why I always say that's why we call it a base, because that's the foundation you build everything else on. That Democratic base is coming together, by which I mean, 80-odd% of Democrats are with Hillary Clinton, but the ones that have been most reluctant to move over to her in the polls have been those who voted in the primaries and voted for Bernie Sanders. What do they want? They consistently said throughout the primary season they want more progressive policies. They specifically want action against what they see are Wall Street excesses. They want action against what they see as a rigged economy that doesn't work for everyone. Interestingly, you heard even Donald Trump in his speech a couple of days ago say, Bernie Sanders voters, we all agree Washington needs to change. Well, look, Hillary Clinton does not own the change metric in this election. She's down to Donald Trump on that. Does Tim Kaine help with those Bernie Sanders people who want change? Does it help, represent change? That may not be the case. We'll have to see there. And in that regard, so back to your point about saying he's a lifelong fighter for progressive causes, it would not surprise me if they keep using that word, yes, he's a progressive, because they need to convince the Bernie Sanders people, yes, we have listened to you.
Interesting take. Steve, you were talking about how expect to hear on the campaign trail them talk more and more about the optimism and sort of the brighter side of the issues that are important at stake. We heard her make that case today, kind of being the counter to Donald Trump's speech that some people have dubbed as a little too dark. She was just saying about how love trumps hate was the final line she used in the speech today. How important is it countering the message that some people are saying is too negative on the Trump side?
Well, that's really been Hillary Clinton's message for the last several months. The theme is stronger together. You're going to see her talk about optimism. My question, and I'd love to hear Anthony weigh in on this, but we see consistently in polling that Americans think the country's on the wrong track. And you got to wonder if what Donald Trump is doing, while it may sound negative and dire, whether he's actually tapping into something that Americans are feeling, or is he going overboard on this sort of this negative view of where America is right now and maybe alienating voters? That's probably something we'll see down the line. But Hillary Clinton is banking on and using the strategy that a positive message is the way to attract voters this year, even though voters aren't feeling great about the direction of the country.
Anthony, I want to ask you to weigh in on that. You watch the polling numbers very carefully here. What is the liability right now for Donald Trump? What is he up against, and where is he doing well?
He's doing well, better than Hillary Clinton, on the ability to fix the economy. And, the Clinton campaign has got to be looking at those poll numbers and wondering just, is that a pretty big danger for them? As I mentioned, he's doing better on the ability to bring change to Washington, and he's doing better on this idea of being independent from big donors, right? So the counter to that from the Clinton campaign, and I think it's a tell again in this pick, is no, we've got quote unquote experience. Mm-hmm. Now we're still talking about folks who've been in and around Washington for a long time, but even though the voters say they don't necessarily want that, the tack here is clearly going to be to say, well, maybe you do, because it brings this knowledge and this experience that, in contrast, they'll say to Donald Trump, makes a difference. So I think the dynamic is going to be that preparedness versus change.
Our Nancy Cordes is still on the phone. She's heading to Miami right now. Nancy, I understand that you have some news about Planned Parenthood.
That's right. Planned Parenthood has now come out with an enthusiastic endorsement of Tim Kaine, which at first blush might not seem all that surprising. He is the Democratic vice presidential nominee, but Kaine is Catholic and is personally against abortion and has kind of evolved on this issue. He says now that he is publicly pro-choice, and he has voted 100% pro-choice, according to Planned Parenthood, over the past few years. And so the reason that this early and enthusiastic endorsement is important, they say Senator Kaine is a thoughtful running mate with integrity, whose Senate record has proven he will stand strong against politically motivated efforts to restrict patient access. He's a leader who has dedicated his life to fight for equality and justice. The reason that that's important is because there are some women's groups that have been, frankly, pretty lukewarm on Tim Kaine. They question his commitment to women's issues and access to abortion and abortion rights, because this is an issue on which there are Democrats in the Senate and elsewhere who are, more committed and more open than he is. And, frankly, it's not the only issue where there could be some pushback, both from the left and from the right. He is seen as a more moderate Democrat in the Senate. It's partly the reason why he was able to win statewide elections in Virginia back when it was considered a red state. And that was a significant achievement, and that is because he is more moderate. So you're going to have some Bernie Sanders voters, for instance, who are pretty disappointed, who say, look, there were a lot of great people on that list who were more progressive than Tim Kaine. Why couldn't you have picked one of them? What are you trying to say to us, Hillary Clinton, when you don't pick someone who we want to see? We're already disappointed enough that Bernie Sanders is not our nominee. And so, there was some concern that if she didn't pick someone who was more liberal, that the enthusiasm gap that we've seen for Clinton among young people might persist, for example. But, that's a trade-off that they decided was worth it. And Republicans already are exploiting tonight some of the other differences between Clinton and her running mate. They're pointing out that Tim Kaine is an enthusiastic backer of free trade, which Clinton has been in the past, but she's kind of tweaked her views this election season because it's just become a pretty radioactive issue this election season. A lot of people feeling that free trade kills jobs and has led to an exodus of jobs overseas. She has said that she is against the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and he is enthusiastically for it.
Our Nancy Cordes, who's following Hillary Clinton en route to Miami for tomorrow's big rally, where she will be likely joined by Senator Tim Kaine, who she has chosen to be her vice presidential running mate.